Hello everyone and welcome to the Committee Reads. I am your host KWCs, and with me today I have Grayshot, Alex, Nagoda, and Joe. And today we will be tackling match 106, Red King vs. Jet Jaguar by Kenneth James. Jet Jaguar had been dispatched to rescue a group of researchers from an island in the Pacific. Reports had been sent out that they'd encountered monsters there and were in severe trouble. Jet Jaguar had been the choice due to his ability to shrink down to human size to search, which he presently was, something a larger mecha could not do. He would soon arrive at the island, his database identifying it as the Lawless Monster Zone, which had been known to years ago house monsters, but it was believed that the majority of them had perished during an encounter with the Science Patrol and Ultraman. Apparently, that was faulty information. He soon landed on the island and began his search. Most of the native, normally man-eating plants ignored him due to the simple fact that he was made of metal, so he wasn't much bothered during his run through the island's forests. That is, until he came across a rather unsettling sight. A giant bat-like creature lay dead in a large mountainous stretch of the island. His data told him that this was Chandler, whatever you want to say it, Kyle Chandler, and was the cause, and the cause of death was rather obvious. Its wing had been torn clean off, and then it had been beaten to death with its own wing from the looks of things. Jet Jaguar knew the researchers were in danger now. Something big and powerful was on the island. The robot's sensor suddenly detected movement behind him, and he swung around, throwing a karate shot, but coming short, his attack stopping inches from the strange red creature's head. Jet Jaguar watched the human-sized monster jump back, cowering in fear, his data telling him that this was Pigmon, a friendly little kaiju. Or at least it was another of the same species, as the first had been killed by Red King. He gently put his hand back on his head and patted him softly, giving Pigmon a reassuring and apologetic nod, not having meant to scare him. He did a series of hand signs and gestures, trying to tell the small creature what he was looking for. Pigmon seemed to understand and hopped around happily before leading the way towards a mountain cave nearby. Jet Jaguar cautiously surveyed his surroundings before following. Jet Jaguar was close enough to detect signs of life from the cave, telling him there was a chance to rescue the scientists. However, his sensors soon detected movement, a large amount of it. He turned around to see a massive titan stomp through the nearby canyon, which he quickly identified as Red King, the most powerful monster on the island. It didn't take long for him to realize that it had been this Red King who killed the Chandler he'd seen earlier, or that Red King was heading straight for the mountain cave. He quickly turned to Pigmon and did a series of hand gestures, telling him to go and get the scientists as far back into the cave as physically possible. After seeing Pigmon on his way, Jet Jaguar charged Red King. Red King marched through his domain, heading for the location of these intruders who dared step foot into his territory. However, his attention was grabbed by a series of loud robotic noises coming from below him. He stood down to see a small silver man doing a series of hand gestures. Red King kneeled down to take a closer look, scratching his head. This was odd. Yet, for some reason, this little thing seemed familiar. Before he could put his claw on it, a bright light obscured the little man from view, and when it cleared, the little thing was now even in height to him. Red King roared and fell backwards in surprise, caught off guard. Pass.
Grayshot.
Sorry, my mic was muted. Red King quickly regained his bearings and looked up at Jet Jaguar's now giant frame, slowly raising to his feet. Red King was confused. Why did this thing seem so familiar? That's when it hit him. Silver skin, red coloration, a pointed head, looked like a human. Memories from years prior flooded back to Red King, of a smaller creature who'd made a fool of him and left him lying unconscious on his own island. Sure, this new thing was very different, but to the simple-minded Red King, there was no difference between Ultraman and Jet Jaguar. And like a great many things, this sent him into a fury. Red King jumped up and down, throwing a tantrum. He finally came to a stop and roared a challenge at Jet Jaguar, cracking his knuckles and taking his battle stance, eager for revenge, even if it was just on someone vaguely similar to the one who beat him all those years ago. Jet Jaguar wasn't certain why his appearance had infuriated Red King so much. Was the simple-minded thing just that territorial? Jet Jaguar didn't know.
Racist?
He's a robotist.
He's a robophobe.
Jet Jaguar didn't know, but he did not know Red King was eager. But he did know Red King was eager for a fight, and he'd have to give him one. Jet Jaguar took his fighting stance, and soon enough, Red King charged, aiming to deck him in the jaw. But the agile machine rolled under the blow and back to his feet. As Red King twirled around, Jet Jaguar quickly did a side kick to the chest, driving him back further, followed by a fury of punches to Red King's gut. As Red King staggered back, Jet Jaguar attempted a flying sidekick to Red King's face, only to find his leg caught by the giant's great strength and held in the air. Red King gave a roar and suddenly began spinning himself around, swinging Jet Jaguar through the air before letting go and sending the humanoid robot flying several hundred meters and crash landing behind a row of mountains. Jet Jaguar systems reported some damage, but not a substantial amount. Still, he underestimated his enemy. Red King was clearly much stronger than he was before. Red King charged after his enemy, trying to find where he'd landed, having been unable to see because of the mountains. Red King had indeed been training since that day. Red King's mind had one goal, really, to be the strongest. That no one ever was. Now, there is only one thing someone with that goal could do when they're beaten. Train harder, which was exactly what he'd done, now that he was certain this silver man would fall before his might. He soon peeked over a mountain, finding Jaguar seemingly still recovering from the toss. Red King leaned down to grab him, only for the humanoid machine to spring up and grab onto his arm, flipping him over his shoulder and onto the ground in front of him. Red King snarled and tried to get up, only for Jet Jaguar to grab him by the neck and attempt some kind of sleeper hold. Red King snarled, while Jet Jaguar had once again underestimated his strength. Red King reached down, grabbing Jet Jaguar by the legs and lifting him clear off the ground. Red King then charged back, driving himself and Jet Jaguar through a mountain. The impact forced Jet Jaguar to release his grip, allowing Red King to drive an onslaught of heavy blows into Jet Jaguar's chest and face, soon beginning to dent the metal inwards. Jet Jaguar systems alerted him to the damage being dealt. Red King was incredibly strong. Jet Jaguar quickly dodged a punch and kicked Red King in the stomach, staggering him back. The robot was quickly on his feet and decided he needed to get back into the fight, which he did by charging and doing a jumping roundhouse kick to Red King's head, toppling the giant to the ground. Before the kaiju could recover, Jet Jaguar grabbed a boulder and smashed it over Red King's back, forcing him back to the ground with a roar of pain. Jet Jaguar quickly jumped on Red King's back and rained chops into his hide, each punch earning a roar of pain. However, Red King finally managed to catch his fists, overpowering Jet Jaguar and forcing himself back to his feet. The giant then lunged forward, sinking his fangs into Jet Jaguar's shoulder, his powerful jaws piercing deeply into the machine's armored skin. Jet Jaguar had alarms going off in his head, telling him this damage would be bad if he didn't do something quick. Pass.
Joe, your fan is a little loud.
Gosh, fucking.
Is he gone?
You guys faded into I think he just muted his
wait,
mic.
Okay, so how much do I get? I get
4.
4? Okay. Red King continued to bite away until Jet Jaguar managed to get his arms free and chop him in the side of the head repeatedly, forcing him back enough to knee him in the ribs, causing Red King to lose his grip. Jet Jaguar then took advantage by running around behind Red King and grabbing him around the waist, springing backwards with a German suplex, driving Red King's neck and upper back into the ground. Jet Jaguar knew this was one kaiju he couldn't afford to give breathing room to, so he quickly got back around and wrapped his legs around Red King's arm, pulling on it hard. Red King struggled and flailed, roaring in pain, trying hard to get himself free. Red King knew his shoulder could be torn out of its socket if he didn't do something quickly. He decided to use one of his new techniques he'd developed since last time. He concentrated, and his hands suddenly burst into flames. Jaguar, quickly releasing the arm he was holding onto to avoid being burned by the intense heat. Red King quickly got back to his feet and drove several blazing punches into Jaguar's chest. Each punch sending a cascade of sparks and melting and bending metal. Jaguar's paint soon ran and melted off, revealing scorched silver. Red King finished off the onslaught by rearing back and sending a punishing fist into Jaguar's midsection, launching the robot several hundred feet into the side of a mountain. Red King roared in fury and put out his fist, allowing him to grab hold of Jaguar's arm, pulling it with all his might on the shoulder that was already damaged from his bite earlier. Jaguar's alarms rang as his arm was pulled, telling him structural failure was imminent. Before he could do something about it, Red King ripped the appendage clean off. Jaguar stared at the shoulder, which now spurted oil and sparks madly. The android was shocked that Red King's strength was so enormous. He then saw Red King swing his own severed arm at him like a bat, forcing Jaguar to roll out of the way. He continued to roll out of the way, He continued to roll out of the way of slugging blows from his own arm, finding the situation dire. He finally did a backflip and put distance between the two of them so he could stop and think. He needed to get those humans off the island, but Red King would never give him enough time to grab them and run. Before he could continue to react, Red King noticed a small mountain next to him, about up to his waist. Red King seemed to realize something, then gave Jaguar an evil look, telling the robot the kaiju had something nasty in mind. Red King pulled his arm back and spun it around several times before slamming it into the side of the mountain, shattering it into hundreds of pieces that buffeted Jaguar and sent him toppling to the ground, covered in dents and open patches of exposed circuits. Red King roared and picked up Jaguar's severed arm and arranged the fingers into a point before coming towards the downed machine.
One more.
I have.
Did you
one
just
more?
give him the middle finger?
One more.
I have one more. Wait, there's 5 paragraphs left.
Yeah, I noticed. We're gonna have to split it between Alex and...
I mean, I can just pass down and give one of them 3.
5 paragraphs left. It's a miracle.
Alright, Joe, you take 3. Alex, you take 2.
Oh, thank God.
Yes.
But are we ignoring that Red King just flipped off Jaguar with his own
His
hand?
own arm.
He is a robophobe.
He truly is.
Remember, kids, make sure you euthanize your Red King today.
My turn?
Yes. Jaguar systems were bellowing.
Jaguar's systems were bellowing alarms, telling him that he was in deep trouble. Red King was far more dangerous than he'd expected him to be. He needed to find a way to end this quickly. He looked over, seeing a very high cliff extending out over a deep crevice. Quickly making a plan, he looked back to see Red King throw his severed arm at him like a javelin, forcing Jaguar to roll out of the way. The arm had been driven to the ground up to the elbow. Jaguar stared at his arm in surprise, knowing that had he been a few seconds slower, Red King would have actually impaled him. He looked back to Red King and ran to the other direction, towards the cliff. Red King saw his opponent running. He refused to let an enemy he'd put this much effort into trying to kill just to run away. He quickly charged after him, lighting his fist on fire again. Finally, Jaguar came to a stop at the edge of a cliff. Red King, assuming he merely ran out of room. Red King laughed and charged forward, aiming a punch at Jaguar, only for the robot to flip over his head. Red King barely managing to come to a stop in time to avoid falling over the edge. The giant panted in surprise and turned around to look at Jaguar, who raised his leg up for an axe kick. Red King cringed, expecting for Jaguar's kick to land square in the face, only to hear it hit the ground in front of him. Red King cocked his head, looking at Jaguar's foot. Had he missed? That's when Red King heard a loud cracking sound and saw cracks spread out from the kick's impact point as Jaguar returned to a standing stance. Red King was confused until he finally realized what was happening. He looked up wide-eyed and gulped before the entire portion of the cliff he was standing on gave way. And he held a sign that said "Help." Jaguar watched Red King and part of the cliff plummet into the crevice below. Red King, letting out a long roar of surprise, interrupted when he occasionally smacked headfirst into the boulder or other obstruction. By the time Red King came to a stop at the bottom, Jaguar was fairly certain he was either unconscious or dead. Still, he couldn't take the chance of the giant recovering and managing to come after him before he left the island with the humans. Jaguar took a few steps back and did a hand sign with his remaining arm, growing to an even more gigantic size, nearly twice as tall as normal. He stepped back and reared up before slamming his fist as hard as he could into the ground in front of him. Pass.
Red King groaned, slowly opening his eyes. His blurred vision returned to normal, enough for him to see the entire cliff face break up and come falling towards him. Red King's eyes widened and he let out a roar of surprise as he was buried under several thousand tons of rock and earth. Jaguar looked over as he reverted to normal giant size, seeing Red King buried completely content that would at least give him time to give the scientists and get them off the island. He headed over to the cave and held out his hand, allowing them to climb on. He nodded to the pigman, who waved goodbye rather happily. Then Jaguar grew giant real quick and stepped on. And headed back to the mainland to drop off the scientists and get repairs, and perhaps share the story with your mom.
Take blasted.
Jaguar.
Gosh darn it. Yeah. I think the first notable thing that should be pointed out before I forget is that this match actually does have a continuation. I don't think it's written by the same author, but I believe, where is it? 262, Red King versus Skullcrawler's continuation, where it focuses more on Red King's escapades, but yeah, with that said...
It's a Red King spinoff.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a Red King spinoff.
Ew.
What are you talking about? That one was actually pretty good, but anyway.
Ew.
I would second that. I would say that was an awesome match, and I had a lot more character to the inhabitants of the island.
Yes.
Ew.
This one was very much a good Jaguar. This was a string of matches where Jaguar lands at a place and he just finds a monster that wants to kill him.
Yeah.
That's usually the theme of a lot of these Jaguar matches. Also, another theme is ripping his arm off. Very common after this.
Really?
Because
oh shoot.
well, if you think, because it happened in I think it happens in Jaguar versus Crystalak, and I'm pretty sure it happens with I know it happens with Jaguar versus Ebra. Or no, not Jaguar versus Ebra. It happens Jaguar.
Gals.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, because I wrote that.
She is.
So yeah, this is the Jaguar gets his arm ripped off trilogy.
Okay, fair enough. So if any of y'all got a thing for Jaguar getting his arm ripped off, you'll be enjoying the next few matches featuring.
If you really like one-handed robots, just watch out.
Can
I just
write
realized. I think I did that in one of my matches too.
Can I write a match where Jaguar gets his arm cut off and Goliath gets his horn ripped out?
Ooh, the
Where
edge.
he gets his arm torn off.
Joe, you can't write Goliath anymore. He's retired.
Oh shit.
Yeah, you forgot about that.
I'll do the KWCE.
Fair enough.
I mean the fanfiction
Joe.
section.
Yeah, no one's gonna read it.
But yeah, Yeah, I think I think it's the same thing I said for 101 in that it's a decent match. Don't have it's written competently well. It's gotten there's the basic setup. It gets around enough. Honestly, I keep forgetting around this time that Red King has the freaking Fire Fist, so it was nice when he used it. I was like, oh yeah, he has that. How'd I forget? But yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I think this one's decently fine, but nothing that's too outside of Jaguar getting his arm ripped off, and it's not too crazy memorable, but I don't think it's bad either. Not really. So.
No, yeah, there's nothing bad about the match, but there's nothing kind of like the previous one we spoke about. There's nothing that everyone watch, and everything else is kind of a little bit blurry. There were a few things that I don't like at this time, and the other match, mountains are apparently just are tossed around like nothing. Monsters fly over them with ease. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just the actual. I'd never seen this episode in regards to Ultraman, but maybe that is just the topography of the island.
It was pretty mountainous, if I'm remembering right, but it's been a while since I've seen that episode.
Yeah, but again, it's there was some good characterization with Jaguar. There was some nice little notes for Pigmon and such. But and the ending was, again, you don't need to kill the monster. Sometimes, burying him
some rocks. That's good enough.
Exactly. Yeah. So overall, good match. Just maybe not the most. It's just not It's just not one of the most memorable. It has one really awesome moment, and the rest are kind of just some good material.
Yeah. So, I think Grayshot gave what his thoughts were. So, Alex, what'd you think of it?
Wait, what?
He has so many thoughts.
It was generic. I have no thoughts.
Alright, fair enough. Nagoda, what'd you think of it?
That was fun. I liked how he just basically used Jaguar's arm as a weapon. And Banner's okay too.
Also generic.
Yeah, I can agree with that one. The banner's a little. Well, yeah, this banner kind of has generically simple as opposed to uniquely simple. So
everyone has those views of those two monsters.
So yeah, and Joe, what'd you think of the match?
I'll send my thoughts in the chat.
Okay, I'll. Gosh darn it. Man, this is going to be the third GIF I'm going to try and integrate in a video. Well, I can only try.
But it was okay. I liked your Jaguar. And that's it, I think. The fight was alright. Needed the Jaguar theme.
Da, 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 da. Alright. So with that said, I think that the only good Pigmon is a dead Pigmon. Gosh darn it. Yeah, outside of an amazing spin-off sequel that comes after this, this one's just kind of average. And with that said, I think that gives everyone's consensus. And with once again with that said, because I like repeating myself, this has been Match 106. And we will see you guys next time for Match 107. Till then, folks.
The only good Pigmon is a dead Pigmon.